Some more years had passed. I am now 11. It feels like that this war is taking forever to end. I am taking part in this underground Polish state school, although many days were cancelled, or skipped, due to a bombing raid, or a possible Nazi attack. It was July, a Saturday, and it was another hot day on the farm. Around these days most of the farm work is done, and there is not much to do. We would go swimming by a nearby creek. The only downside with that is that mosquitoes and leeches like to hang out there too. All I can say, is that you get used to it. Hannah and Isaac would also join us if the coast was clear. This time when we went to the creek alone like we always do, but we stopped cold when we saw another person far off in the distance walking around with a gun. Was he a Nazi or a resistance fighter? Was it safe to pass him or not? How would he react if he saw Hannah and Isaac with us? If we lied saying that they are not Jewish, would it work? We started to consider turning back home. So, we turned back. That's when I heard someone yell, "Halt! A Nazi!" I heard his German accent. I paused, stood still. I told my brother, Isaac, and my cousins to go home. I insisted Hannah to go with them, but, right as she was about to leave the Nazi coming closer and ordered in poor Polish, "The two older kids stay put now." This was okay since everyone knew the way back alone. I told them don't look back and keep moving, but not too fast. We waited for the Nazi to reach us. I waited and waited. Hannah was about to whimper. I told her not to because he might not know. I then jumped when I felt him poke my shoulder. He looked at me and Hannah and asked, "Do you know German?" I answered, "A little." He then started to speak German. I basically had translated most of it to Hannah. He said we were lucky we didn't move any further. He claims that the Russians are making their way near our town. The creek is just one way they can enter through. I asked, "Why are you here alone?" He responded, "I am a scout. I will need to notify the Nazis when the Russians reach this point." He then told me, "Now, go home if you want to survive and not get killed between the crossfire." On our way home we were in shock. The Nazi did not kill us, or ask us for ID. Was this the beginning of the end of the Nazi occupation? When we got home, everyone was relieved to see us alive and we told them about our experience and what the Nazi told us. That night we heard some gunshots being exchanged in the distance. The next day when we woke up, only Hannah and I walked to the creek again, but this time with no intention of swimming. We came to a sight of dead bodies of both Germans and Russians. Then I looked at one of the bodies and saw that one of the soldiers had a sword. So, I took it as a souvenir. Hannah saw some playing cards on a different body which she took as a souvenir. While scavenging like vultures when they eat a corpse, I noticed we were basically taking luxurious items that we were deprived from. Then we came across a body that had a box full of chocolates. Both Hannah and I ate some. Hannah then said, "Wait, let's not eat all of it. We must share this with our family back on the farm." That is when we heard a jeep come from a distance. It was the Nazis again. We hid in the bush right by the creek. We thought about making a run for it, but before we knew it, more and more soldiers showed up. "Attention!" One of them hollered. Immediately all the soldiers lined up. The tall man who hollered must have been a commander or general. He started, "Gentlemen, you did a good job yesterday. You were able to make those Slavs retreat. Now we must try to get back into their mainland. However, before we do, let's get rid of these bodies. Leave the Russian ones here." Then one of the men yelled, "General, one of the men's sword was stolen." Then I looked at the sword and I took and held my breath. The general looked mad. He yelled, "Those Polish thieves! Hurry, go to all the houses nearby, and if you find a sword, that is the person who stole it." Then one gentleman asked, "Sir, do you want us to look beyond the creek to find if there are bodies there?" The general waved his hand in a way that allowed him to go, but it was in our direction. Immediately, I looked at Hannah. I was ready to jump in the creek and hide under the water. By the time I was about to go in, The sword got stuck in the bushes along with my arm. I looked up at the sky and whispered a short prayer. Out of nowhere, I felt someone pulling me out of the bushes and said, "You!" He then looked back at the other men. I recognized him, he was the guy that told us to leave last time. He then looked at me, he said to me, "I want you to leave this place now. Take the walking pathway back, not the road, it is your safest way back." He also asked to have the sword back. Hesitantly, I gave it back. Immediately Hannah and I sneaked back home alive again. Was I dreaming? This was the second time a Nazi helped me, and Hannah survived? Why? We walked home with the cards and chocolate Hannah was able to smuggle. We again told our parents about the experience. My father was skeptical. A Nazi being nice to Poles? He asked. That seems too far-fetched, he responded. Why would he help us? I don't know, Dad, I answered. Hannah suggested that we should find him and ask him. No, shouted my mom sternly. He is only one man, she continued, not the whole regime. After that day we will keep on hearing gunshots like every night. Based on the German propaganda, they are winning, but I was confused. Occasionally, if the coast was clear, Hannah and I would look at the bodies and see there always a greater number of dead German men instead of Russians. When it was 1944, we started to see more and more Russians enter Poland with no resistance. They were welcomed and alive. We were able to understand their language a little bit easier since Russian is also a Slavic language. My uncle was not pleased though. He was a Polish citizen who fought as a Russian during World War I. He claims if we welcome them, they will make us communists as they did to themselves after the war. I told him, but uncle, we should be happy since the Nazis are moving back. My uncle just grunted. I tell by his action that during that war there was something he took seriously. Soon the Russians were hailed as heroes. 1944 was the year my family and I had hoped that things would return to normal. However, it did not. Yet, we were able to still now move a little bit freer without the threat of getting shot or arrested. That is when it hit me. Bang! A smirk, something I almost lost.